Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sugar Land City Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 3rd. Before we get started, I've got a message for our protesters tonight. Here's the message. This council will never submit to petty demands and bullying that's been going on. Going forward, the rules have changed. We will not tolerate distractions or disruptions to our council meeting. There will be only one warning if speakers are off topic. Comments will be directly related to an agenda or an action item, period. If you are called upon to step away from the podium and refuse, an officer will escort you out of our meeting. If you refuse to go, you'll be placed under arrest for disrupting a council meeting. Chanting and or singing will not be tolerated. I will clear the chamber and people will be arrested if you continue to disrupt this council meeting. We're going to move now to our invocation. Suzanne, if you'd come down and give us the invocation, and then I'll ask Benicia Hoffman with Parks to lead us in the pledge. Suzanne?
Thank you, sir. Would you please join me in our prayer? Father God, we gather before you this evening with gratitude in our hearts, reflecting on the blessings of this past Thanksgiving holiday with the many gifts you have bestowed upon us. As we gather this evening, we thank you for the opportunity to serve our community and to make a positive impact in the lives of those we represent. As we return to work after a time of rest and reflection, we ask for your continued guidance and wisdom in the decisions we make. Help us to approach each matter with clarity, compassion, and a commitment to the well-being of all who call our city home. May our work be a reflection of your love and justice, bringing peace and unity to our community. We offer our gratitude for the opportunity to serve you and ask for your continued blessings upon our citizens, our city staff, our first responders who protect and serve this city, and to our council dedicated to our calling as servant leaders. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And now if I could have Benicia Hoffman please come down. Benicia, you're going to lead us in the pledge to the nation's flag and then to the Texas flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To the Texas flag.
Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Can I just talk about Christmas tree lighting? Really quick, I would just like to invite you guys out to Christmas tree lighting on behalf of the special events team. Christmas tree lighting is happening out in Sugar Land Town Square this Friday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. There'll be plenty of activities for all to enjoy. Snow slide, Santa himself will be there. We'll have sweet treats, drinks, and everything you can enjoy. So please come out, have a good time, say hi to me if you see me. See you guys all Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Benicia. And now I'm going to ask Joshua Doyle. Joshua, if you'd come down. I'm also going to ask to join me Dwayne Zvatek, Robert Schulte, Andrew Popescu, Thomas Bernal, Darian Jones, Eric Gunter, Stephen Lammers, Jonathan Liu, and James Posey. Kind of spread out over here. Yep, there you go. We wanted to recognize these gentlemen. There aren't any ladies, I don't think. Not yet. We'll work on that. They have all received their State of Texas Plumbing Inspector license from the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners. In cities across the state, I think we're the only one that all of our inspectors are licensed. So that's a huge honor. You know, I want to compliment all of you for going through that and getting that license. I also want to honor Joshua Doyle, he didn't want me to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. He was awarded the Master Code Professional Certification, which is the highest level of designation the International Code Council offers. Less than 1% of industry professionals have that designation. Joshua, congratulations to you. Lisa, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor. You stole my thunder there, but just wanted to really highlight, I mean, this group of individuals is outstanding. They are very dedicated to their profession and really to this city. The amount of effort that they put into their job, educating our community, the businesses, the homeowners within our community, to make sure and ensuring that the development that happens in the city is of the highest standard, meeting our codes, is tremendous to see them work every day. Sometimes in some not so great conditions when it's 100 plus degrees outside, or it's cooler outside, cold outside, which is rare, but it happens, or a rainy day, they are out there making sure that the development that happens is the best that it can be here for our city. And I just wanted to also mention Joshua's achievement. This is only, I think, 1,000 folks worldwide have this certification, and that's worldwide. That's not just in Texas, not just in the United States, that is worldwide. So this is a very elite group that and certification that Joshua has earned, and we are so very proud of him. He sets the gold standard, both in receiving this or earning this certification, but also for the rest of his team, and I know he's very inspiring to the rest of his team. So congratulations to all of you, and really appreciate all that you do, and it's a joy working with you. So thank you.
Joshua, you want to say a few words?
Pretty much I've already said all I wanted to say. Again, we have such a niche industry that not too many people know what we do. So understanding that we are one of the very, very few cities, not just in the state, nationwide, it's an industry issue that we're having, that there's no trained professionals coming out from high school or even college to do this job. So when we went in and had to restaff over 60% of our group, there wasn't a single applicant that had a license, had training. So we had to build this from the ground up. It's been great. It's been tough. A lot of long nights studying, a lot of certification exams, training. Over 200 hours of training per the state goes into what they've achieved. It takes about 2 years to do what they've done. So we're proud of them. I will say, even though we didn't call them part of this, part of the group that is even further behind the scenes, the permit coordinators, which is a huge part of what we do in the field. They handle the angry customers a lot of times that are mad because, not everyone wants to go through what we have to deal with, right? No one wants to get a permit. No one has to go through the inspection. And because they look at it as holding up the job, right? It makes it harder. So we try to really, rely heavy on customer service to help bridge that gap. And the permit coordinators, which are here with us right now, they can stand up, please, if you want to. We're going to clap anyways. But Karen, we have Laura Lee, Monica, Crystal, and Angela. Thank you for all you ladies do.
Why don't y'all come down too? Come on. Come on. And again, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the extra effort you've put into getting the education and getting the certification. You made us really proud. We're proud of you. Council members, if we can get a picture, go ahead and stand up on the dais back there. Yeah, you guys are going to have to spread out a little bit. Let me remind everybody what I'd said earlier. You're welcome to speak on a direct action item. If you're not speaking on a direct action item, I'll call you down. I have one warning. You'll be excused from the podium. You can walk out under your own terms and we'll help you. Your choice. Our first guest tonight is Caleb Kirkpatrick. Caleb, come on up. Caleb, you got 3 minutes. I think you know the drill.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Council. My name is Caleb Kirkpatrick, and I'll be speaking on Agenda Item 8A. Agenda Item 8A is consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution Number 2463, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, expressing intent to finance expenditures to be incurred. In layman's terms, this will allow the city to take on municipal bond debt to pay for new city projects. This money will never be spent on operations of the city. Sugar Land is known far and wide for its financial success and stability. Sugar Land is also known to have an immense dedication to its citizens' wants and needs. By passing this resolution, you gain the funds you need to You gain the revenue needed to fund those needs. In my mind, this debt will not have a major impact on residents' taxes, as the debt is set to mature over a 20-year period with 50% paid off in the first 10 years, about $4.7 million per year. In the cover sheet linked to the agenda, it states that residents today are not responsible for paying off the full amount of the debt. To me, that just makes this decision, proving it to be a no-brainer, which will improve citizens' quality of life. The only thing that may give the City Council any pause is the fact that in today's high interest rate economy, it may be best to wait to incur this debt so the city can get the best deal. Despite this fact, I still find it important to pass this resolution. Some citizens may be worried about the timing of this whole project, and I think that the city may be taking on extra debt that they need at this moment. The good news is the IRS allows for reimbursement of expenditures up to 60 days before and 18 months after the resolution is passed. This will allow the city to wait for the perfect moment to take on the debt in relation to interest rates and the needs of the project. The city's Treasury Department has set it up so that the projects are funded by the departments that benefit from them. For example, this leads me to believe that an item such as SWAT command vehicles for a cost of around $1 million will be partially funded by the police department. This alleviates the worry that projects will take budget away from other departments. Some of the items I personally believe will be extremely beneficial for the citizens of Sugar Land are traffic sign rehabilitation for $800,000, sidewalk rehabilitation and replacement for $2.6 million, an animal shelter design for $1.8 million, and the renovation of the existing PD and court building, plus a new PD headquarters for $4.1 million. And there's still so much more that I did not have time to list. Council, I fully support this decision, and in my eyes, it makes perfect sense as another step to continue toward Sugar Land's goals as trailblazers. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much, Caleb. Our next guest is Amina Ashak.
Today, I'll be speaking about an important matter affecting our community. The $360,000 salary of Sugar Land City Manager, which is the city manager's compensation package and action, consideration of an action on the city manager's compensation for period October 1st, 2024 through September 30th. Mike Goodrum is the city manager, and he makes $360,000. It is crucial to examine whether this compensation is reasonable and aligned with the best interests of our residents. First, let's consider the broader context. Sugar Land is a city of just over 110,000 residents. While our city prides itself on strong economic growth and excellent public service, we must ask whether a $360,000 salary for a single public servant is reflective of our community's values. Many city managers in similar-sized cities across Texas and the nation earn much less, around the range of $150,000. If we are overpaying, it raises the question: are these funds being allocated in the most effective way? Public sector salaries should always be benchmarked against performance and transparency. It's essential to measure the tangible results of his leadership. Are there infrastructure projects running efficiently? Are taxpayers receiving services they deserve without undue financial strain? If we are paying a premium for this leadership, the outcomes should be going above and beyond more than well. Qualified professional earning a more than a standard salary could achieve. Third, we must think about what this salary means for the future of our city. Every dollar allocated to administrative costs is a dollar not spent on pressing needs like improving public safety and addressing the challenges of housing affordability. Our city's budget is finite, and prioritizing leadership salaries over other needs risks alienating the very residents we serve. If city officials are earning disproportionately high salaries, it erodes the trust in local government. Finally, let us not forget the symbolic nature of leadership. As public servants, city leaders are not only stewards of taxpayer dollars, but also role models for financial prudence. A salary perceived as excessive could set a tone that is at odds with the values of fiscal responsibility and equity that our community holds dear. This is about ensuring that Sugar Land's resources are allocated wisely and fairly, and that every decision reflects the priorities of the people who live and work here. Transparency and accountability should guide all discussions about public salaries, especially when they exceed reasonable benchmarks. I urge our city's leaders to reevaluate this compensation package. Let's ensure that every taxpayer dollar is spent in a way that benefits the greatest number of people and upholds the values of our community. Leadership is about service, not excess, and it's time to make sure our policies reflect that principle. Free Palestine.
Let me be absolutely clear. The last comment's unacceptable. If you'll please escort her out. We're not going to tolerate this. I already said that. I've been perfectly clear. Hopefully we'll abide by it. If you can't, we'll cut it off. Our next guest is Michelle McKeska. I'd caution you to keep on the agenda item.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. We're here to discuss an important matter, the salary of our city manager, Mike Goodrum, for fiscal year 2025. For his salary in 2024, it was a little over $360,000. First, let me acknowledge that managing a city like Sugar Land is no small task. It requires skill, dedication, and leadership. However, $360,000 is a significant sum. It's worth considering whether this expenditure aligns with the needs and priorities of our community. To put this figure in perspective, it represents a substantial portion of our resources that could be allocated towards community improvements, like repairing potholes, enhancing public amenities, and funding programs for our seniors and youth. These are initiatives that directly impact the quality of life for all residents. This is not a question of diminishing the value of Mr. Goodrum's contributions. It's a question of accountability and stewardship. As taxpayers, we have a right to ensure that our hard-earned dollars are being spent in ways that maximize benefits for the community as a whole. I propose and greatly ask this council to revisit the salary and explore potential adjustments. Any savings could be redirected to projects that visibly and tangibly enhance the lives of our residents. In conclusion, this discussion is not about criticizing an individual, but about advocating for a balanced approach to fiscal management. Councilwoman Lane, you recently posted on Facebook your disapproval of the adopted salary increases of elected Fort Bend County elected officials. I agree with you. I think making $200,000 or more is too much for a public official. And yet these officials are still making $160,000 less than our manager. My question is, will you apply the same fiscal responsibility to the city manager's salary? If not, then this is a glaring exception to your claim to financial responsibility, and I think that we as the citizens of Sugar Land deserve to know why. Is Mike Goodrum holding you hostage in the salary negotiation? Just blink twice if you need help, because that's the only way that I can think for this salary to be this high.
17 seconds.
I guess not. Perhaps we should change Mike Goodrum's name to Daddy Warbucks. Or maybe that is only something your 20-year-old girlfriend can call you.
Our next guest is S. Khan.
Thank you, City Council, for giving me the floor today. Let's take a moment to break down the $360,000. Honestly, I have a hard time even saying this number when I look at it. Salary of our city manager. So per month, that's about $30,000. Per week, that's $6,923. And honestly, that's more than some Sugar Land residents make in a month. That is $990 a day. So every sunrise means nearly $1,000 for Mike Redrum. Per hour, that's $123. And every minute, that's $2.05. So in the time it takes to microwave heat a Hot Pocket, he's already earned one. Okay, I tried. I'm here because someone needs to say what many of us were thinking. This city council's decision last year to approve that salary was out of touch, irresponsible, and frankly insulting to the people of Sugar Land. Mike Goodrum's salary is not just outrageous, it's an insult. You approve this absurd salary, and for what? What has he done that's so remarkable? And let's talk about who you really work for, because it doesn't seem like it's the people of Sugar Land if you approve the salary for this year. You seem more concerned with keeping your friends in power than actually addressing the needs of our diverse community. So speaking of diversity, let's address the elephant in the room. Sugar Land is one of the most racially diverse cities in Texas, yet this council's priorities reflect nothing of the sort. Time and again, you've shown whose voices you really listen to, and it's not the voices of the residents of Sugar Land, the working people who most of us do not make $6,000 a month. So if you approve this salary again for Mike Goodrum again this year, it's just another example of how disconnected this city council really is. I think I had another joke somewhere, but
Time. I'm sorry, your time's up. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? We're going to go to item number 3, annual ethics training. 3A, receive an annual training related to the Sugar Land Code of Ethical Conduct and state laws regulating ethics and reporting responsibilities of city officials. We have with us our city attorney, Meredith Reedy, who always makes it fun. Meredith.
Hi, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, boards and commission members, current and soon to be. This is exciting. This is my favorite topic of the year. So you get to play a little game with me. This year, we're playing the game of ethics. So let's talk about the objectives of our game. First, we're going to receive an overview of the Code of Conduct. You're also going to get your annual training that you are required. And hopefully, after spending a few quality moments with me, you will successfully serve your upcoming term with no ethics violations and keep your Independent Ethics Review Board very bored. So who gets to play this game with us this evening? Members of City Council, members of administrative and advisory boards. Every once in a while, we'll let former City Council member and advisory board members play, and candidates for City Council can play in just one little aspect. So we have 8 simple rules that we're going to go over this evening, and then you're going to have an opportunity to play. So the biggest rule you have is conflict of interest, special economic benefit. So there's 2 things I'd like you to keep in mind. There's this business entity conflict of interest in which you have 10% or more of ownership of the stock or financial value, market value of that company, or $15,000 of your annual income received from that corporation, and real property if you own 2.5 thousand or more of the fair market value of the property. And keep in mind, when I say you, I'm also including your spouse, your children, and your parents, because if you get to play, they get to play. So conflict of interest, once it's determined that you have a conflict of interest, you are required by state law and the Code of Ethics to file a conflicts disclosure statement with the city clerk's office. You will abstain, and I'm going to ask that you leave the room. Not that we don't trust you, it's that with the Houston Astros and all the other baseball teams, they can read signs. We don't want there to be any doubt or confusion as to what message you're sending. You may be ordering a pizza. Somebody thinks you're voting on an item. So you also get to brag if you're related to a vendor. When do you get to do that? With whenever you are receiving income from a vendor with the city that exceeds $2,500 in the past fiscal year. Also, it's if you're related to the 3rd degree by consanguinity or 2nd degree by affinity to that vendor. If you don't know what that is, I have a chart on my desk. I'd be happy to share it. I don't have it memorized. So you also get to brag about gifts. This is that time of the year. People think, hey, it's holiday season, let's see what we can do. So you get to disclose and brag if you receive gifts of lodging, transportation, entertainment, or food. It's $100 within a cumulative 12-month period. It's rolling, actually, and it's cumulative from each individual vendor. Now, you'll notice there's a little asterisk next to the word food, and that's because if you have the privilege of being able to sit and have a conversation with that vendor, you get to spend up to $500 for the privilege of being in their presence. So go ahead and order that appetizer, that extra dessert, or to-go box because you've earned it. So there's additional rules. We have 5 additional rules I want you to keep in mind tonight. Doing business with the city. This only applies to city council members, but I'm going to go ahead and share it with everybody in case we have somebody on a board that has future aspirations of joining you up here on this dais. So doing business with the city, a council member cannot do business with the city in a substantial contract. And what is a substantial contract? A substantial contract is one exceeding $1,000. Great news, that is over the entire length of your service, not just your term. So if you're a 3-year council member, you can go up to $300 per year. No big deal. If you're a 9-year council member, you do the math. It's probably not a good idea to play this game. Representations and appearances. You also like to see me take my hat on and off when we do different lessons. So representations is as a sitting member of a council, board, or commission, or for 2 years after your service, you cannot go in front of another board or commission or your own board and commission and represent somebody at an interest contrary to the city, and you cannot go outside the city and represent somebody contrary to the interest of the city for payment. Appearances, you are by all means allowed to say, hey, as a resident of Sesame Street, this zoning property is affecting me, and you can go up there and talk in your personal capacity. Keep in mind, as city council members, you're very seldom in your personal capacity. You're almost always wearing your council member hat because it's almost impossible to take it off once you are sworn in. So if you decide to post on Nextdoor, any social media, go to a holiday party, go ahead and say, in my capacity as a council member, in my capacity as a board member, the Planning and Zoning, Building Commission, as the animal rights person in the animal board, go ahead and tell people what hat you're wearing. Nextdoor is very good about that. Just make sure that you are as well. Misuse and disclosure of official information. So if you happen to have the misfortune or the fortune, depending on how you think about it, the city is being sued and we go into the executive session, you get to spend some quality time with me. We talk about legal information. I'm going to ask that you do not share that. If you do, it's a violation of state law and a violation of the Code of Ethics. Any information that you receive in closed doors is confidential. Additionally, any information you may receive related to economic development in closed executive session or real property transactions is also confidential, and it is a violation if you do in fact share that with somebody outside of the group that was originally presented to. Wrapping it up, participation and procurement. So state law has many different rules and regulations on how we procure different items. So the city is very diligent in complying with the state law and following all the necessary procedures to make sure that we comply. To help us comply and to make sure that no vendor gets special treatment, we ask that you do not get involved in that process. You do not call the purchasing department. And if someone calls you and asks you questions about that, you say, please go to Jason Bukowski in the finance department, in the purchasing department. He'd be happy to answer any questions. Do not go out of your way to find additional information related to that or seek and send people around, because that in fact would be a violation. Depending on the size of the contract and the amount of involvement you may have been, we will disqualify that vendor because we want to make sure that all rules have been followed. And the last rule I'd like you to keep in mind before you have an opportunity to play a little bit of a game and find out how to complain is campaign contributions. So if somebody decides they are unhappy with the city and they sue the city and are seeking $25,000 or more in damages, exceeding court costs and attorney's fees, you are not allowed to receive a campaign contribution from them. If you get one, please return it. If you have any questions on whether or not this person is in a lawsuit with the city, please ask me. I'd be happy to let you know. So I went through that extremely fast because I know everybody in here really wants to have an opportunity to go home this evening and read it for themselves, word by word, and not have to listen to me talk. So when you can't sleep tonight, you can go to the Code of Ethical Conduct. It's Chapter 2, Article 4 of the city's Code of Ordinances on our webpage. If you have questions, if you've read it all and you don't know what you're doing, you want to ask questions related to, can I do this behavior or not, go ahead and give me a call. I will give you a written ethics opinion. Some people have referred to that as a get out of jail free card if an ethics complaint has been filed. So what happens if someone doesn't follow these rules as we're playing the game or actually serving our terms? You can file a written complaint with the city's clerk's office. Once that complaint is filed, I will review it. I will review to make sure that the complaint is filed within 1 year of the date of the action, the alleged misdeed of the Code of Conduct, and that the person alleged to have violated the code is somebody who's eligible to be judged by the code, whether they are a current council member, a former council member doing a representation within 2 years, if they are a Board of Commission member. You cannot file a complaint against the city attorney, the city clerk, or the city manager, or any other city employee, because this does not apply to us. We have our own rule of conduct. So I will review it for that. It must be signed and sworn. And you're going to have to, whoever complains has to list what violation they believe occurred. You can't just say, hey, I think they screwed up. That's great. That's fine. The Independent Ethics Review Board has nothing to go by. You must tell them which section. We have a nice little form on their website. Click down box, and it'll even give you the ones to choose from so that you have like a little menu if you decide you want to do this. So if I go through it and I decide all those boxes have been checked, it then gets sent to the Independent Ethics Review Board for the review of the complaint. They look at it, they have outside counsel, they go through this hearing process, which is open to the public, and they look at all the facts to determine if a violation has in fact occurred. If the board does decide that a violation has occurred, they can issue one of 7 sanctions. Starting at the top, letter of notification, all the way down to recommended recall of an elected official. You will note that 6 and 7 are just recommendations, because under 6, you appoint them in, only you can remove them. Under 7, the voters vote you into office, only the voters can remove you. That was fast. Do you have any questions? Or are you ready to play? Okay. My vice chair of the Ethics Commission is excited here, so I'm expecting full participation to get credit for this. If you don't participate, you're going to do a makeup session with me, and it's even more fun. So, because we're now playing the game of ethics, I want you to know that we had a wonderful council member who's interested in increasing revenue and promote tourism within the city, and they have suggested that the city install a kayak-friendly boat ramp at both the Brazos River Turnaround and Oyster Creek. So I'm just curious, do you think it's an issue if this council member's daughter owns a rent-by-the-hour inflatable kayak company? Is that a conflict?
That's a problem.
That is a conflict. It's a special economic benefit. Keep that in mind. So you've did a little spinner, you've moved on a little bit. So as you know, the supportive parent, this council member makes a few calls and gets the boat ramp idea on the next Parks Board agenda for review and positive feedback on the idea. Do we have a concern with this? Also a conflict of interest. All right, so we're still going. So the Parks Board is really excited about this, and they enthusiastically endorse this prospect. And as they're having a discussion, they are suggesting adding pad sites for food trucks. So obviously now we have food trucks, we have to do a little zoning change. So we take it to the Planning and Zoning Commission. While there, a commissioner sitting up there and goes, oh my gosh, this is the greatest idea ever. And they text their spouse, go ahead and put an offer on that truck. This is great. We now have something to do on the weekends. Is there a violation? No, because the idea of food truck occurred in a public meeting, and everybody who's watching the meeting and the public has an opportunity to go bid on that food truck as well.
There is a perception issue.
There is a perception, but that's not in the code. So this was a trick question. And the ethics board is laughing at me because we discussed this at one of our most recent meetings. So this boat ramp idea is just taking off. Everybody is great, and it's very clear the SLDC and 4B just have to get involved on this because we have to have the best kayak company come to our city. If we're gonna do it, let's go all out. So good thing for this daughter, the council member sits on both the 4A and the 4B. What kind of luck do they have? And so ignoring all limitations in state law, because obviously this would not be requiring or meeting the requirements, both boards unanimously decide this is the best company and they're going to pay all costs to relocate the inflatable by the hour kayak rental company's headquarters to move to Sugar Land. Do we have a problem?
Yes.
And that problem would be?
It's a benefit that they wouldn't get without having a council member. It's also a perception issue.
Conflict of interest. And so the council member should have?
Recused.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So now that financing is secured, because that council member was not paying attention, although I try very hard every year to make sure that you understand these wonderful rules, the Parks Board endorsement and zoning in place, this council then goes ahead and grants the daughter an exclusive license to operate that kayak rental and boat ramp. Still have a conflict, right?
Right.
All right, well, we're doing so great. So this goes on for about 6 months, and this is just, the 4A and 4B were correct. This is just so wonderful. We've had more revenue than we could ever imagine. Kayak companies made $30,000, and the food truck has made $45,000. Sad.
Is that per month or for the year?
Asking for a friend? Okay, so asking for a friend, I'll talk to your friend afterwards. But unfortunately, over Labor Day weekend, a kayaker was bit by an alligator. And as you can imagine, the injured kayaker decides they're gonna sue the city. They also sued the kayak company, but they only made $30,000. You're not gonna cover this person's deductible. They're going after the city because we obviously have all the money, right? So because we have a lawsuit, you all have the privilege of going into closed executive session with me and talking about the lawsuit. Do we have any issues here? And what action should occur? That's right, the council member needs to step out because they are most likely a party to that lawsuit by their virtue of being a council member and because they are the parent of the person who owns the company. So because y'all are great people, you recognize this alligator did take a chunk out of this kayaker, you go ahead and settle the lawsuit and you revoke the exclusive license because you said the liability is too high for us and anybody who wants to can just go plop their boat in and have a great time. Open to anybody. Whoever you rent the boat from, it's on you. Now that you've done that, we have an unhappy citizen. This local resident and business owner is mad because he wanted the opportunity to have exclusive rights there, and he wanted to get an incentive payment to operate his small business from these corporations. So now we've gone through all that. You are at the day of reckoning. You have made it all the way around the board, and this unhappy citizen has filed a complaint with the Ethics Commission. So, what violation do you think the Ethics Commission will sustain?
Conflict of interest.
That's right. I told you 3 times, 3 different slides. So yes, this is definitely a conflict of interest. And I would guess if any of my ethics board members wanted to shout out what they think the punishment would be. Vice Chair, what do you think the board would vote?
We would definitely sanction, write a letter, we ask for it.
Sounds like they're going to take it very serious. And it will not be a good day for that council member. So congratulations, you are free from ethics training for a whole another year, but I am very happy to provide you any additional training should you desire.
Meredith, you bring up an interesting point, and that is if a council member has a question or anybody on a board or commission, pick up the phone and call you.
Yes, that's a very good point. If you do pick up the phone and call me, you get something called a get out of jail free card. So if you give me all the accurate facts, and I will provide you a written opinion that says the facts as presented to me are this, and my belief is that the this is a violation or this is not a violation. And if a complaint is filed, you can take that magic email, and I will also send a copy to the ethics board. So if a complaint is filed, you're not in trouble, I am, because I gave you bad advice.
I have a feeling you're not going to be in trouble.
I do my very best.
Item number 4, oath of office. I'm going to come down off the dais, and I'm going to ask all the board and commission members, that being the Animal Advisory Board, Building Standards Commission, Independent Ethics Review Board, Parks Advisory Board, Planning and Zoning Commission, Sugar Land 4B, and Zoning Board of Adjustment, if you guys could all come down front, and I'll administer the oath of office. We don't get to see y'all very often. Kind of nice to see everybody in person.
It's always fun.
First of all, before I administer the oath of office, I want to thank you for volunteering to serve our community. I think you've probably heard me say this. This is what makes our community different from every other, is that we have qualified, interested people, people that have ethics and integrity, and they want to serve our city. And we don't pay you. So it's your time, and we certainly value that time. If you'll now repeat after me, and when I say I, it'll be your name and the position. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of your position of the City of Sugar Land, County of Fort Bend, State of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and of this state, and the Charter and ordinances of the city. And I furthermore solemnly swear that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, or promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or valuable thing, or promised any public office or employment as a reward to secure my appointment or the confirmation thereof, so help me God. Congratulations. And now if I could get everybody kind of stretched together, we'll get a picture. Council members, I think it's just easier just to stand. Don't be shy. We probably ought to have two lines. Ladies, if y'all move up front, here, come up this way. Come up this way a little bit, ladies. There we go. And then guys, if you kind of
My job easy, man. Thank you.
all right. We know how to line it up.
There we go. On this end, could we crowd in just a little bit? There we go.
There you go. Now we're talking.
There. And let's see. I'm actually going to back up a little bit. Big crowd. All right. 3, 2, 1. Thank you all.
Too tall for that. You don't want to.
I know. Come with it. Should.
There we go. Give everybody a minute to kind of get cleared out. Let's move on now to item number 5, consent agenda. All the items on the consent agenda will be taken as one motion unless the council member wants to pull that item. Do I have a motion? Got a motion by Watley. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second by Ferguson. If you vote at this time, please. Thank you, council members. 7-0 vote. Item number 6, donations. 6A, consideration of an action on acceptance of a donation for a Piper Cherokee PA 28140 aircraft. We have with us Mitchell Davies, our Director of Aviation, our Deputy Director of Aviation, and Mark Campisi, our Interim Fire Chief. Mitch.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council, Mayor, City Manager. Appreciate this opportunity to talk about a very unique and exciting donation opportunity for the city and for the fire department. We have a T-Hangar tenant that's been at the airport since 2021. They purchased a 1966 Piper Cherokee for a family member's flight training. But the aircraft is no longer needed. It hasn't been flown in some time and has since lost the airworthiness certificate. And this is going to require a significant amount of inspection and repairs. Unknown how much that cost would be, but it would be significant. Just as a comparison, similar airworthy aircraft, same age, same, very similar, range from about $55,000 to $80,000, depending on condition and avionics on board. So the tenant didn't really know what to do with it, didn't really want to spend a whole bunch of money to get it airworthy to sell it. So we had a trailblazing employee that had an awesome idea to propose donating it to the fire department for practicing, and they were very excited at that and jumped on it and agreed and signed the agreement. And so I'm going to pass the time over to Chief Campisi to talk about what they're going to do with it.
And Mitch, I understand that the donor wants to remain anonymous, and we'll respect that.
Correct, yes, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What an incredible opportunity we have in front of us. And so when Mitchell reached out and asked if this was even something that we would be interested in, I was absolutely excited to jump on it. So, what this means for us, when we talk about target hazards in our business, we talk about things that are high risk, low frequency, meaning they don't happen very often, but when they do, it's something major. And when we talk about aircraft and aircraft firefighting and aircraft rescues, that's at the top of the list when it comes to target hazards. So giving us the opportunity to take ownership of this and create some training around it and become better and well-versed whenever we actually, unfortunately, have to put our skills to work on this. This is kind of a once in a good career opportunity for us to jump on. We got to do some work to it to get it over to the fire field, but I'm excited to get that over. The picture that I asked them to put up there, it's not just about airplanes crashing. You see that a lot. What we see a lot, fortunately not here in Sugar Land, but what I've seen a lot in my career is planes that make it to the end of the runway, go off the runway, flip over, and patients have to be extricated from those airplanes. They didn't burn, they didn't crash, folks haven't died in them, but they need to be extricated. So we'll work through the logistics of getting this thing moved over for us, and we'll be able to either use mannequins or some real life victims to self-extricate either themselves or us help with that. And at some point, when we think we've ran all of our companies through it well enough, then we'll get our tools out and we'll start cutting on it. We cut on cars all the time. I can get junk cars all the time. I cannot get airplanes. And so this is a great opportunity, and I appreciate the consideration to accept this donation.
God, that's an awful good-looking aircraft to be cutting on it. Jeez. Mitch, I thought you might want to fly that thing.
Oh, goodness. I like being on the ground with unless up in the air with an airworthy aircraft.
I understand.
So just a couple logistics. All FAA forms have been filed for decommissioning the aircraft. There's a few procedures that we'll follow. The airport will contract with a local aircraft mechanic shop to pull the fuel out, the oil, make it safe to work on. That'll be less than $1,000, and the fire department will relocate it and may have to require removing the wings. So with that, requesting approval to accept the donation of this Piper Cherokee aircraft, November 918 Hotel Papa, which is a PA 28140 aircraft to the City of Sugar Land Fire Department. And with that, any questions?
Thank you, Mitch. Chief? You got it. We're going to go right to it. No questions on that. So we've got Jacobson and we've got McCutcheon. Any questions? Vote at this time, please.
So did you say to move it? Oh. I'll let you know as soon as.
Volunteer to be extricated, I think is what she's asking.
I got you.
Yeah.
I know where to find you. Thank you.
So we've got, it passes 7-0. Thank y'all.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Thank you.
And again, thank you to the donor. That's an incredible gift. Item number 7, contracts and agreements. 7A, consideration of an authorization of a contract with Accurate Utility Supply LLC in the amount of $1,234,350 through the Bi-Board Cooperative Purchasing Contract number 71723 for the purchase of Badger water meters for the Advanced Metering Infrastructure AMI Improvements Project CIP CWA 2210. And we have with us, well, Katie, you're here.
I am here, as is tradition.
Katie Clayton, our gosh, I don't even know what the title is anymore.
That's all right.
Director of Utilities, there we go.
Utilities, yes. I'm excited and proud to introduce this evening Trevor Surface. Trevor is our field operations manager, recently promoted within our utility department. Prior to that was our AMI program manager, and has been with the city for right at 5 years and is a Texas A&M grad. So he's doing great work in utilities, and I'm excited to let him tell you about AMI.
An A&M grad being introduced by a UT grad. Now, isn't that interesting?
Hook 'em horns, yeah.
Trevor, welcome.
I haven't talked to Katie all week.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Good evening. Good evening. Oh, sorry. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and City Manager. Thank you, Katie, for the introduction. I am up here to not only request to enter this contract, but also provide a quick AMI or Advanced Metering Infrastructure update. And boy, am I excited to talk about this. That's the only AMI joke I will provide tonight, I promise. So as you know, our AMI project is our Advanced Metering Infrastructure project that we started mid last year with the first meters going in October. Our first subdivisions we really hit hard was River Park and New Territory. As of right now, we're at 31,123 installs, or 79% of all of our city water meters, including residential and commercial. 13,000 of those have been registered retrofit, which means the original brass body of the meter stays in the ground, and we just replace the top part. 16 or about 17,000 of those have been full meter replacements. That was due to age to get our most accurate water meters in the ground. A majority of these have been residential meters. We did start work on larger meters in mid-November of this year, starting with Nowco off of 90. One of our biggest users, we upgraded their meter, put them on AMI to kind of help them out with their usage as well. Currently, we're collecting a sub-meter GPS location of every meter in the city, which as a former GIS person, I'm very excited to have that data, not only for mapping use, but for further operational use. And then our customer portal. So we're working on cleaning up our data to work with the customer portal developer, Vertex One. That one is ensuring that whenever we do release the portal, which planned for the first quarter of next year, we're getting the most accurate information to our residents. I will say the rest of the residential meters that need to be replaced or have AMI installed are areas of Greatwood and First Colony, and then we'll be out of the residential and start working fully on a lot of our irrigation meters and our large meters for our businesses. I would also like to say one aspect that we were able to do this year as well. During the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, we were able to build 2 cycles off of the AMI data due to not having access to those meter boxes due to debris. So we were able to use that data and start billing off of that so we could avoid estimating those bills. Our next steps, of course, are going to be finishing out our installation phase. So that's our remaining residential water meters, and of course, complete our large meters. Finalize, publish, and advertise the customer portal. We're going to hit that hard to make sure that every resident wants to join, wants to sign up, and wants to use the portal. We want to empower our residents to look at their water usage data. They'll be able to see not only their hourly usage, but sign up for leak alerts, high consumption alerts, and look at their data, download it, analyze it all they want. And we will have a change order number 3 coming through in the upcoming months to cover the rest of the services need to complete our installs. I would also like to take this opportunity that this project would not be where it's at without our AMI operations manager, Michael Maxey, and the rest of the utilities team who has helped up to this point. So with that being said, keeping it quick and short tonight, I'm requesting approval for consideration of an action on authorization of a contract with Accurate Utility Supply in the amount of $1.2 million to purchase Badger water meters so we can complete the rest of our installation and make sure the rest of the city gets on the AMI. With that being said, are there any questions?
Thank you, Trevor. Carol.
Thank you. How often does a residential meter send out a signal?
So the signal is sent every 6 hours, and it's every hour in between the last transmission. So every 6 hours, we'll get 6 reads, essentially. So if it's a 6 p.m. read, we'll get the 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Yep.
Suzanne?
Thank you. Are we ahead of target or completion on this? What is our target completion date?
Our original, when we were going through the first part of this project, our estimated completion date was March of 2026. We are extremely ahead of schedule due to working with our contractor installation company, Pedal Valves Inc. Not only were they ready to hit the ground running, they have been very efficient in their installs. As of today, only 0.76 of all of our installs work has had to go back to Pedal Valves for them to address again. They're here to work and complete this. So we are very ahead of schedule.
Congratulations. Thank you. Follow up?
Follow.
One other question I had was on the portals that you have installed or the ones that have been installed, are they active already?
The customer portals, we're working on ensuring that the data from our utility billing software, Tyler, will work with our setup for water meters. We do have accounts that have 2 water meters under the same account, and we want to be able to separate those so there's no confusion. So we're working through that issue right now. When we do go live with the portal, everybody's going to have the same access.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Motion to approve.
Okay. William?
Sir, thank you for your hard work. I know this is a big task. You guys have done a great job. As we're looking at purchasing more meters, are these the right meters? Are they performing well? Are you confident in them? Is there a better product? Are we where we want to be with these meters? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. So the Badger meters that we decided to go with this project are not only a city preference. Our field staff prefer using these meters over some of the other meters offered. They're also an industry standard all over the U.S. Every meter that we get is tested and verified within 99.5 to 100.5 accuracy, which is AWWA standards, to ensure, so we're getting the highest accurate meters. If we do see any issue with a meter, we will pull it, get it tested, and send it back to the manufacturer.
Great answer. May I follow up? Yeah.
Sure. Follow up.
I like we all do, we follow social media as closely as we can, and we get I get the perception from time to time that as these meters are being installed, people are complaining that their bills are going up. However, when we send our team behind to inspect and review, we're not finding that. Why would that perception be there? Is it just because of the particular month of the year? What are you finding? Are there leaks? Is this just a social media thing?
So it's a few things. That's a great question, and it's actually been a topic of discussion with me and multiple coworkers for a while now because we've seen these complaints come through, and it's in my best interest to serve our residents and make sure that they're getting the best service possible, right? One of the biggest things we're seeing is that we had a very rainy summer, or kind of spring, summer time frame up into July, and then we got no rain for 4 or 5 months. When we get no rain, everybody's starting to irrigate. Unfortunately, irrigation is pushing about 600 gallons of water through the meter every hour. A lot of people don't realize that irrigation is 600 gallons an hour or so. We're also seeing that because we're putting so much emphasis on this project, we're advertising it with pre-installation and post-installation door tags. People are taking notice to their bill right after it and saying, oh, it may be off. We are checking, whenever we get those complaints, we will check the meter and we'll have Treasury staff check their past 2 years worth of billing to see if it's in line with, let's say, October of last year.
Well, again, just to finish with a compliment, considering 79% complete, whatever the number was, wow, that you guys have not had more. If I had done the install, it would be like 50% problem. You guys have done a great job. Our city has followed up really well with the complaints that I have presented, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second? Got a second by McCutcheon. Any other questions? Vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members.
Thank you.
Item number 8, ordinances and resolutions. 8A, consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2463, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, expressing intent to finance expenditures to be incurred. Jing Zhao, our Director of Finance. Jing.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the City Council. So resolution number 2463, it is the declaration for the city to reimburse itself for all costs paid within 60 days in the past on the approved projects, CIP projects, that being approved with the bond package. So basically, it allows the city to start CIP projects prior to the bond issuance. So in order to allocate future bond proceeds to expenditures prior to the bond sale, the issuer, which is the city, must take official action to express the intent that we want to do this. So the qualified expenditures, including the expenditures that are paid 60 days prior to the approval of this resolution. And the reimbursements can be also made. I'm sorry, I keep doing this. Every time when I start talking, I forget moving my finger. So this is the general rule. So 60 days prior, and also reimbursement can be made no later than 18 months after the date of the expenditure is paid or the date the project is placed in service, basically is completed. So whichever is later. But in no case should be more than 3 years after the expenditure is paid. So this is the general rule. So since we talked about, right, the reimbursable expenditures must be on the approved CIP projects. So for FY25, within the city's approximately $160 million capital budget, there are 18 projects are planned to be funded by GO bond. The total is about $27.5 million. And 16 CIP projects were planned to use utility revenue fund. The total is about $67.7 million. So some of those projects may have already been initiated. So for 2025 bond, they are going to be issued. We're reasonably sure that we're going to issue the bond. We're currently working with our financial advisor and bond counsel on developing possible timetables. So while we're working on that, to avoid project delay, this resolution will give the city the authorization to start working on the project without waiting on the bond issuance process to be completed. So all the 34 projects we just mentioned, they are listed and attached with the resolution. This table gives us a summary by type of the project. So within this amount, 15.7 million is for public safety related projects, 6.9 million is for streets, sidewalk, mobility, 2.9 is on drainage, 275,000 for municipal facility, and $1.8 million for animal shelter. The entire, of course, 68 million is for utility related projects. So there are a couple of notes on this resolution. So this resolution only express our intention. It's only declares that we're intent to reimburse ourselves using future tax exempt bond proceeds. This resolution doesn't authorize any use of fund. So when it comes to the time the CIP project need to award a contract, that still needs to go to the council for approval. So nothing changed in that side, the operation side. So recommendation, staff recommends approval of Resolution 2463, that's stating the city's intent to reimburse expenditures from future tax exempt bond proceeds with an amount not to exceed $95.2 million. So that concludes the presentation. Any questions?
And so, Jing, we're still required to bid projects like we always are. We're still required to take the low bid.
Correct.
Once staff has verified that in fact the low bidder's been verified and they've been fully vetted, then they come back to council for action.
That is correct.
Right.
This resolution does not change any procedure or a process on any operation relates to the CIP projects, contract awarding, or bond sale. There's no change.
Motion approved. Question, Carol?
Out of the $6.85 million for streets, sidewalk, and mobility, what portion of that is being allocated to sidewalk repair?
I need to calculate that. I can get you that number. So.
Okay, thank you. Second.
Suzanne, anybody else have a question? You vote at this time, please. And it passed 7-0. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Shane. Well, stay up there. 8B, consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2465, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, casting a total of 130 votes out of 5,000 total votes in the election of 5 directors to serve on the board of directors of the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District for the 2025-2027 term. Jane.
Yes, again, good evening, Mayor and the Council. So this resolution, basically, like it said, is to cast the 130 votes for the Fort Bend CAD Board of Directors election for 2025. So the structure and the terms for the Central Appraisal District has been changed by Senate Bill 2. That was passed in July 2023. So before this change, the board used to have total 6 members. 5 voting members, they are nominated and elected by participating tax units within the appraisal district. And all of these voting members have 2-year terms that begins on January 1st of even-numbered years. And the 6th member is the non-voting member. It's served by the tax assessor. So that's prior to the change. So after the change, so Senate Bill 2 expanded the board to 9 directors, basically 9 members, adding 3 members whom supposed to be elected through general election. And the effective date for this change is July 1st, 2024. For these 3 elected members, they all have 4 years, it's staggered 4-year terms, beginning January 1st of every other odd-numbered years. So, and also the 5 appointed members are the same. So the 5 appointed members are nominated and elected by taxing units within the district. And those members all serve staggered 4-year terms beginning January 1st of every other even-numbered years. And the 9th number is non-voting member served by the tax assessor. There's no change on that. So yeah, you may be wondering why we're doing this election. So we did it last year, now we're doing that this year again. So this table shows that to transition from 2 years term to staggered 4 years term, the participating tax unit needs to do the election every year from 2023 to 2025. The transition will be completed after 2027 election. After that election, all these 5 members will have 4-year terms. So the highlighted 2 rows, that are the election we're doing right now for FY25, starting FY25. So 5 members, there are 2 members will be serving a 1-year term, and 3 members will be serving 3-year terms. So just to provide a full picture, this is the table that's showing how that works for implementing the 3 newly added elected members, starting from the middle of the year, and how does that transition to full 4-year term for all 3 members. So as the table shows, they do the staggered. So after 2028, all 3 members will have a 4-year term, is staggered. So here are our current board members. The 5 names in the top box, they are the appointed members. Those are the members that being elected by participating tax units last year. And the bottom box has the 3 elected members. So back in October this year, we nominated 2 candidates, Mr. Jim Key and Mr. Michael Rosell, to serve this term. So in November, we received the ballot from the chief appraiser with 5 candidates listed on this slide for the 5 appointed positions. So Mr. Jim Key and Mr. Michael Rosell have been nominated by City of Sugar Land. And the City of Sugar Land has total 130 votes to allocate to one or more of these candidates. So recommended actions, first of all, we need to allocate the city's 130 votes out of the total 5,000 to one or more candidates on the ballot. And then we need to approve Resolution 2465, casting the 130 votes in the election of the 5 directors for the term up to 3 years from 2025 to 2027. And then we need to send the ballot and the resolution to the chief appraiser before December 15th.
So Jane, go back 1 slide, please. So the 130 votes, we got two people that we've nominated,
Yes.
Roselle and Keish.
Yes.
So, you know, I'd suggest we divide the 130, 65 apiece for each one. That makes the math easy, right?
Yes, I think that's what we did in the past.
Everybody okay with that? All right, and then 2465, that's the 130 votes. Let me finish, and then I'll give you a chance to ask. Casting 130 votes for the election of 5 directors. Now, who are those 5 directors? That's the 5 that we've already allocated before?
No, you mean these 5?
Okay, so we approve the resolution, we allocate the votes 65, and we're okay.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Because our 130 only accounts for 2.6% of the total vote. So there are other entities, they will vote for their nominated candidates, I believe.
Suzanne, you got a question?
Yes, I know we voted for Jim Keish and Michael Roselle. Are we looking at David James as a citizen of Sugar Land, or are we just going with the 2 we have?
He lives in Riverstone, he's not in the city limits.
Okay. I just want to make sure we cover our citizens for Sugar Land. I want to make sure.
But David James lives in Sugar Land.
I'm sure he does, because he lives over off of First Colony.
Yes, Grell's husband.
He's one of my constituents.
Right, it's Jim. Yeah.
Is he up for election though?
I'm sorry? He's a candidate.
Yeah.
He also serves on one of our boards and commissions.
So we didn't nominate David James?
No, we didn't. We only nominated 2 at the time. There's the third one. We thought he was Sugar Land resident, but he was not. And but he withdrew his name anyway, Mr. Jim Rice, I think.
Yeah.
Jim withdrew his name. I remember Jim telling
we didn't
me.
nominate Mr. James.
David James lives off First Colony Boulevard. He is a Sugar Land resident. If we're not going with that, that's fine, but if we're covering our Sugar Land residents, he is one.
It's up to y'all. What do you want to do?
We could split 33% and 33%.
Is that what you want to do?
I would recommend we do.
I'm content with the 65, but I'll go with the majority.
Got 130 votes, ain't gonna make much difference. Trust me.
We have more of an opportunity. We have more of an opportunity if we give 65 then.
I'll make a motion that we take a 65 Jim, 65 Roselle. Do I get a second? Got it. Got a motion, got a second? Why don't you vote at this time, please? All right, it's 7-0. There you go, Shane. Thank you. Thank you, council members. Number 9, workshop. 9A, review of and discussion on proposed city council policy number 5000-25 for the creation of public improvement districts. God, this should be fun. Kareem Heshmat, senior planner, and Andrea Barnes, P3 Works LLC. Kareem, you going to lead us off? And Andrea is virtual.
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Kareem Heshmat. I'm a planner in the Department of Redevelopment. I'm joined virtually by my co-presenter, Andrea Barnes from P3 Works. Andrea, can you tune in?
Yes. Thank you, Kareem.
All right. The topic for our workshop is public improvement districts. Public improvement districts are a type of special infrastructure financing tool available to municipalities and counties through Chapter 372 of the Texas Local Government Code. You may know about these districts because we have 2 of them in the city. But in anticipation of complex financing that may be necessary to redevelop areas of the city, staff has drafted a policy to establish PID objectives, standardizing application requirements and other conditions, such as submittal documents, financing criteria, and property disclosures. So today we'll go through a workshop and discuss some of that with y'all. We've evaluated several Texas cities to create this policy. This was also supported by P3 Works and Hilltop Securities. Thank you to our external partners. Any questions you have for us that we can't answer, we will refer to them. Our workshop will consist of the following: a PID 101 by Andrea Barnes of P3 Works. We'll recap the 2 existing PIDs in the city. We'll talk about why we're choosing public improvement districts and retooling them through this policy, benefits compared to MUDs. We'll go through 4 topics for feedback from y'all, questions, and then close out with next steps. Andrea, let me know when you need me to advance slides. Passing over to you.
Thank you, Kareem, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing P3 the opportunity to provide you with the introduction to public improvement districts tonight. So we'll start out by talking about what authority is granted to the city to allow the city to create public improvement districts. And that would be Chapter 372 of the Texas Local Government Code, which is also known as the PID Act. And how does a PID work? PIDs are formed over a defined area and can be created within the city's city limits or the city's ETJ. And a PID requires the consent of the majority of the property owners at the time of creation. And PIDs are used to finance infrastructure that will benefit the property owners living within the district through an assessment. The assessments are not increases on property owners inside or outside of the district, as it levies an assessment which is not considered a tax. The assessment, though, does provide for a lien that runs with the land. And per state law, PID assessments can be paid in full, or they can be prepaid at any time or paid in annual installments. The principal and interest portion of the assessment is fixed based on the annual installment schedule that is provided to the property owner, which is per state statute. The assessments are due on January 31st or otherwise stated by February 1st of each year. And if they're not paid, the city can foreclose, just like you can for non-payment of property taxes. What are the assessments used that are collected? They're used to pay the debt service due on PID bonds if PID bonds are issued, or they could be used to make the annual payment due to a developer or his or her assigns through a reimbursement agreement that does include interest. The annual collection costs, though, before the payment is made to the developer each year, are deducted from the assessments that were collected. The assessments do also include administrative expenses. Those administrative expenses are included in the annual installment that is due each year. And that is the only portion of the annual installment that is subject to change each year, depending on the actual expenses incurred. You might ask, why would you utilize a PID at the City of Sugar Land? One is it is considered a quality tool that the city can have in its economic development toolbox. It is also used to achieve the city's development goals and provide for accelerated construction of any needed public infrastructure, such as your water, sewer, parks, that are also commonly described in many of your plans within the city, such as your comprehensive plan, your parks master plan, a master thoroughfare plan, all the various plans that you have. Another reason could be that city has felt the limitations that have been imposed by the legislature in recent sessions. Those standards have prevented cities from requiring developers provide quality development beyond the city subdivision regulations. Such things can be negotiated through a development agreement when you're creating a PID. The city can also require a developer to make a cash contribution to fund those city projects that I mentioned earlier. Some of the big picture considerations are that a PID is not a separate political subdivision, and the city council serves as a de facto board. As I stated earlier, it allows cities to extend the public infrastructure without having to create a burden to its existing ratepayers or taxpayers. And it does serve as a quality economic development tool. You can utilize it to complete annexations. You can also request developers to do oversizing of public improvements. And as I previously stated, enhanced or greater design standards can be imposed. It does grow the city's tax base without obligating city revenues that are often done through a TERS or a 380 agreement. And PIDs can also be used, as I stated before, to forward the city's comprehensive plan and other plans of the city. Who is commonly part of the city team? That would be, as Corrine mentioned earlier, your financial advisor, the city's bond counsel, your city attorney who presented earlier tonight, a PID administrator, dissemination agent, the underwriter, and a trustee. So the last three are commonly only utilized when you issue PID bonds or do bonded PID. The financial implications for the city is that the debt that is potentially issued is considered non-recourse to the city, which means that the PID bonds or the reimbursement obligation are backed only by the assessments that are levied by the PID. Bondholders can never require the city to pay from any other revenue source of the city, only from the PID assessments that are levied on the property within the PID. And it doesn't reduce the city's bonding capacity at all. It retains all of its property and sales tax revenue generated by properties in the PID, like the TERS, it shares in those revenues, or a 380 agreement. It can and does sometimes impact your bank qualified limit, though, of 10 million per calendar year. But we do have a mechanism available to us that can be included in the development agreement to compensate the city if such a situation arises. So the city will typically enter into what we call a professional services agreement with the developer, which requires the developer to put up a sum of money that's identified in your PID policy into what we call an escrow account. And that escrow account is used to cover the expenses of the city consultants that are utilized to create and administer the PID. After a levy has been completed, the PID administration is commonly paid for either by the PID assessments that are included in the annual installment, either through the trustee if it's a bonded PID, or if it's a cash PID, it's paid directly by the city. But it comes out of those PID assessments, never comes from any funds of the city. The types of PIDs that are most common are what we call cash PIDs, or they're also known as pay-as-you-go PIDs, or just pay-go PIDs, that they're all the same. And those allow for future long-term reimbursements through a reimbursement agreement with the developer. And the interest rate is set in accordance with the PID Act. On the reimbursement bonds, those allow for reimbursement after the infrastructure has been installed by the developer. It is based on an appraisal that is done to establish the market value for the finished lots within the development. They usually come with a lower interest rate. And your construction bonds is another type of bonded PID, which is where the city will agree to issue upfront bonds for the developer to be able to construct the infrastructure. In that situation, the land is typically all owned by one party, which is the developer. We also utilize an appraisal by an independent appraiser to establish the market value, and it does come with higher perceived risk and higher interest rates. As for the city obligations related to a PID, the city is required to enforce the payment of the assessments. Thus, if a property owner fails to pay, the city must foreclose. The bond indenture contains several reserve funds that provide cover of the debt service payment that is required should someone default and not make their assessment payment, so you don't jump immediately to foreclosures, same as with your property taxes. The city does hire a PID administrator that is paid from the assessment, as I mentioned previously, which is billed and collected each year. And as the administrator, The city oversees the following functions, but the administrator will provide you with a review of draw requests that are submitted by the developer, which is commonly stated as a certification of cost. So the developer will submit the cost to your PID administrator. The PID administrator will verify those costs and complete cross-checks with the city to ensure that the infrastructure that was required to be installed was installed and has been inspected, and that all bills owed to the city by the developer have been paid before any reimbursement is made. As your PID administrator, the administrator should verify lien releases and all bills paid affidavits to ensure that any subcontractors that all subcontractors have been paid and that no claims to any of the property or the assessments can be made by a subcontractor. As a PID administrator, P3 maintains a database of all property within the PID. And the PID administrator should also update the assessment rolls annually and send those updated rolls to the county for billing and collection, complete tracking of payment history, and prepare delinquency reports based on data received from the county, conduct account reconciliation of the bond accounts that are held by the trustee. It's important to note that bond proceeds are considered bonds of the city that are just held by the trustee. The administrator will also file annual continuing disclosure reports that are required to be completed by the city and the developer, and enforce collection of assessments, prepare the annual service and assessment plan update. So that's done as it states here annually, and ensures required documentation is filed and recorded in the real property records of the county as required by the PID Act. As the administrator, we do not commonly file those documents, but we work to ensure that they are filed in the real property records, either by working with city staff or the city's bond counsel. And then the documents that often govern PIDs from a city standpoint include the service and assessment plan that I mentioned and the annual assessment roll, the bond indenture of trust, which is an agreement or document between the city and the trustee, a development agreement, which is commonly negotiated up front, a reimbursement agreement, an assessment reconciliation or delinquency report, trustee monthly statements, and monthly bond fund reports. Some other documents that are common to PIDs are the issuer continuing disclosure, the developer's quarterly disclosure, the home buyer's disclosure documents that are required by state law, the county parcel tax roll, county collection reports, developer draw request, and various other developer documents. Are there any questions?
Questions for Stuart?
Thank you, Mayor. Andrea, I saw on the first slide that a PID can be created in the ETJ, true?
Correct, sir.
So let's say you've got a PID in ETJ and the PID debt is paid off, but the area hasn't been annexed yet. Who is responsible for maintaining the facilities that the PID created?
So the development agreement typically will speak to the responsibilities related to the maintenance of the infrastructure for the PID, and or can be countered or in addition to the development agreement. Oftentimes there's also a separate maintenance agreement that can be entered into as well. Another option is at the same time that you're forming the infrastructure PID, you can form an operations and maintenance PID that would then lay out who is responsible for the operations and maintenance of the infrastructure in place or the services being covered by that O&M PID.
Okay, thank. Follow up, please. Okay, so inside the city limits, outside the city limits, regardless, can a PID, can you change the, for instance, if we're doing an annual pay, can the assessment be increased to cover repairs or out of warranty failures or something like that, or is it set and is it set in stone from the beginning or what?
So once the assessment is levied, sir, The assessment is set, the portion of the assessment that is the principal and interest, those are set in accordance with the annual installment schedule that is provided as a part of the home buyer disclosure documents. And so that principal and interest that's included in that installment schedule will not change. But your annual collection costs that are part of the annual installment is subject to change each year based on the actual annual collection cost expenditures incurred each year.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Kareem?
All right. Thank you. I will continue on that. We have thought of a contingency plan of the dissolution of the PID, and so we do address that through our policy. It's a great question. We'll continue on. Although Sugar Land and the Houston area have long used MUDs to support development, PIDs are advantageously positioned to support redevelopment because they offer a wider variety of authorized improvements compared to MUDs. And we'll discuss that later. The straightforward and limited acreage of the 2 residential PIDs that we do have in the city justify the PIDs as the most appropriate financing mechanism available and not a municipal utility district. However, more complicated land financing or service support may be necessary to redevelop other parts of the city, warranting the need for this policy. And as a result, we may explore bonded or maintenance and operations PIDs. And so we'll quickly go through the 2 that we have. Enclave River Park, established in 2014, about 140 lots on 55 acres. We have the Park at Eldridge, more recently established in 2021, about 90 lots on 22 acres. And both of those have a 50% city tax contribution. Compared to municipal utility districts, PIDs offer expanded reimbursement options for infrastructure improvements such as parks, green spaces, landscaping, and decorative elements, public-private partnerships to guide development and accomplish city council objectives, pre-payable tax-deductible assessments for property owners offsetting financial burdens, city council direct oversight as a governing body because PIDs are not a political subdivision, advantageous financing through access to capital markets, and variable assessment methodology to equally apportion costs by land use type and property size. In a redevelopment context, applications of PID improvements might include construction of off-street parking facilities to support vertical density, pedestrian mobility enhancements via improvements to sidewalks, streets, and other roadways, placemaking elements such as construction of pedestrian malls and art installations. Next, we'll cover the types of PIDs being established by the policy. The first being an infrastructure PID, which provides for capital improvements related to land development. Examples of those authorized improvements include the aforementioned sidewalks, streets, roadways, water, wastewater drainage, libraries, pedestrian malls, and art. And there are 2 subtypes. First being cash PIDs or pay-as-you-go. These are the 2 existing PIDs that we do have. And the second subtype being bonded PIDs, where they can issue bonds. The city issues those bonds, but as we'll discuss later, they have no recourse to the municipality. And they expire generally the length of the bond term, about 30 years. The second type of PIDs are operation and maintenance, also known as service PIDs, which provide supplemental services to an area. Those services include tourism, security, business recruitment, advertising, recreation, cultural enhancement, and other subtypes, and they generally operate into perpetuity. The budget is approved annually, but the city council can choose to dissolve the PID at any point. So we'll move into 4 key areas of the policy and pause for feedback after each. The first 3 are highlighted in the draft policy to make them easier for you to find. PID objectives, what we want PIDs to accomplish and how we're evaluating them. The second being maximum cumulative assessment to ensure parcels aren't over-encumbered financially. Requirements for bonded PIDs to ensure we structure deals appropriately, deal financing appropriately. And lastly, PID application fees, what an application might cost to submit. PID objectives are used by City Council to determine whether to approve the proposed PID or not. We've drafted 10 objectives that move the city forward. And I'll go through those bolded statements quickly. Policy alignment with the comprehensive plan, economic development, redevelopment of underutilized areas of the city, creating a walkable environment, a mix of residential options in a variety of configurations, preserving nature, multimodal transportation, such as complete streets, parks, promenades, new and improved infrastructure, drainage, underground utilities, exceeding development standards, in particular, enhanced architectural standards, building materials and/or finishes, historic preservation, and placemaking elements. So I'll pause for discussion on Section D, PID objectives. Sir.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Stuart. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the last one kind of grabbed me, historic buildings. So can you develop a PID for the Char House that just includes the PID, or just includes the building? Can you carve out the building and create a PID on behalf? And can the city create a PID on its own, or does the landowner have to apply to create the PID?
It would be, the petition would be submitted by the property owner. There's which we'll cover later, there's some financial metrics to make the deal make sense.
Suzanne.
Thank you. Kareem, the 2 PIDs that we've done so far are residential.
Yes.
And I think the way you calculate the assessment is basically cost of the improvements or infrastructure times the number of homesteads or homes and lots divided by time frames that you expect it to pay back.
Right.
We're looking at PIDs that are going to include commercial. This is different from a regular homestead. So, and I know we talked about this before, how we're going to divide commercial versus residential and the time frame for paying the PID back and the assessments on it. I think this is feedback. This is really not even a question, I don't think. I'd be interested to understand how that looks for redevelopment and development going forward when we set the parameters for PIDs on redevelopment, because we are expecting more than residential.
Right.
And we're going to do more than put in just infrastructure. I think we're going to put in more exciting things than just infrastructure. So when we look at that, what are your thoughts on how we make those assessments for residential versus commercial? Or do we even address those issues in the beginning?
Right. What considerations do we make?
Right.
So what I've seen, and Andrea, feel free to chime in, I've seen the cost of those improvements allocated by property type and size. So what I love about PIDs is that you can allocate those costs appropriately by the benefit that's being received by the property.
You could do it based on assessed valuation. You could do it based on a whole lot of different things.
Yeah, there's a lot of methodologies there. And so it gives you that flexibility. What I've seen are lower rates applied for residential uses, and then you can have a higher rate applied to a commercial use.
Follow-up? Could we, thinking out of the box, is that also an incentive for commercial use to look at development and bringing in more businesses? Those PIDs, can we use that as an assessment, those PID assessments as a type of incentive to bring business?
Yeah, there's plenty of creative ways to finance it, to structure it. Andrea, have you seen that at all in some of the other cities that you've worked with?
Yes, Kareem. And so typically, to answer the council member's question, typically when you have residential assessments, those are done on a per lot basis, and the special benefit that's conferred. So if you have different lot types, that indicates to the city council that you have a different level of benefit that's being conferred to one lot type versus another. And as for commercial, it's typically calculated based on acreage and special benefit. So it will be based on the special benefit conferred and allocated or divided once the total assessment is calculated by the number of acres. Does that help answer the question and make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you, because we're looking at something that's going to be a different kind of animal here, and it works so much better, it seems, in a mud. So I like the idea, and there's so much flexibility in it. Thank you.
Oh, sir.
Thanks. Okay, can a city create a PID for city-owned land and then issue debt, reimburse itself for improvements to that land, and then maybe transfer ownership in the future if the city decides not to keep it, and the encumbrances would continue to run with the land after a city transferred the ownership? So the first question is, can the city create a PID on its own property?
Generally, I've seen cities, the deals written, the city exempts its own property.
I'm sorry?
The city will exempt its own property from those assessments. If the municipality is the property owner, then sure. But generally, I've seen that the city doesn't pay its own assessment.
Yes, but could the city create a PID to develop a piece of property that the city owns with some sort of agreement to transfer ownership to a future owner, and the PID would run with that, and the city would get reimbursed?
I'd tap Andrea for that one.
So it would be common for, if the city has a particular developer that they are interested in negotiating a development agreement with for the purposes of future development of an area, and they want to create that PID, the PID petition must be filed by the property owner. So if the city's the property owner, then they would be the ones that would file the PID petition. However, as Kareem said, you would not assess yourself as the city. So it would make more sense to have that property transferred already or in the works to the developer, and then have the developer create the PID. And then the developer that owns the PID, until they develop it or sell off the lots, once that levy is assessed, and they would be responsible for those assessment payments. Otherwise, if you just do it based on the city, you don't have anything to assess. You're not assessing anything. Therefore, you don't have those revenues. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, Andrea, I think the way that it just offer this, so city buys the land, city goes out, gets a master developer that wants to develop the land gets transferred to the developer, PID gets created based on a request by the developer. But what that does for the city is, one, it gets it off our tax rolls. It gets to be taxable property. It gets it to a master developer that then has a development plan to develop the land in accordance with a plan that the city would then approve. And then that land is completely taxable, and those assessments then go on land that's owned by whoever the developer sells it to in the future. Feasible?
Yeah, yes, sir. And I most commonly see economic development corporations will be the owners of land that ultimately ends up getting transferred to a developer or sold to a developer, in addition to other land that they buy from private landowners to then create the PID boundary. So
4A, 4B.
Yes, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. PIDs are funded, Section E, maximum cumulative assessment. PIDs are funded by assessments charged to parcels in the district commensurate with the benefit they receive. Staff is recommending an initial PID assessment and ad valorem tax burden not to exceed a total of $3 per hundred of taxable property value. And that's inclusive of all taxing jurisdictions assessing the property. The 3 per 100 is an industry standard metric that we've seen in the Houston area, although in the DFW that goes up to about 310 to 315 per $100 of taxable value. So those parcels and development can command a higher assessment in the DFW area.
Yeah, Kareem, I know for MUDs it's typically $1.50, but then that requires the ed on a county school district, whatever,
Right.
special special entities are out there.
Right. So with this, we set a maximum and then we work backwards.
Okay.
Mayor, question.
Question.
Okay, so this is the proposed ordinance, right? Or the proposed policy?
Yes.
Okay, so it's us who's creating this $3 cap,
Yes.
which is sort of arbitrary in a way. I mean, if you look at...
Yes.
Okay, so why do we even bother putting the cap on? I mean, the council's going to have to vote. The council has to vote either way. Why are we putting that $3 cap on? I mean, you might have an overlapping tax rate that would exceed $3, but only for a certain period of time, while another overlapping tax expires for some reason, and then we couldn't develop that, and we would be tying our hands. So I'm wondering whether maybe that's something we should reconsider.
It's helpful for policy guidance as we go into structuring a deal.
It's helpful for a developer to know what the maximum is.
Right, yeah, and that kind of keeps, generally we've seen that $3 per 100 to keep a parcel competitive with development in the surrounding area. And so if it's helpful to have that line in the sand. A PID creation of a PID is at the discretion of City Council, so.
And Kareem, the policy does provide language in it that allows the council to make a decision if they would like to deviate from the standard set within the policy.
Thank you. All right. Two more. Exhibit B, additional requirements for bonded PIDs. The city retains the right at its sole discretion to make final determination as to the acceptable structure of any PID bond to be issued by the city. These are 4 of the 11 criteria provided in Exhibit B we wanted to review with you, followed by an explanation of the criteria and any relevant comments. As a side note, 2 large-scale deals to share the scale of what we're talking about is Collin Creek Mall, which had bonds of about $150 million to $200 million, and then Veal Ranch out in the DFW area, bonds of about $800 to $2 billion. So that's the scale of some of the developments that are using PIDs. So the first topic being no general obligation. PID bonds, this is standard language. PID bonds issued by the city never constitute indebtedness or general obligation of the city, and that they're secured and payable only by assessments. No comments there. Value to lien ratio affects how much development capital is accessible via the bond market. General recommendation is a value to lien ratio of 3 to 1, no less than 2 to 1. Bond term of 30 years, and a note that is a little hidden there, that this varies from the city's 20-year bond maturity preference, but 30 years for a PID bond is typical from what we've seen. And lastly, the minimum bond issuance of $1.5 million, just to make sure we're hitting those economies of scale and attracting deals that are worth the time and effort.
So, Kareem, my thoughts on the bond term is somewhere between 20 and 30 years. Because to your point, on a minimum bond of $1.5 million, I wouldn't do a 30-year debt on that. I'd do a 20-year.
Okay.
So I'd rather see a range of years as opposed to a set amount.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you.
Yeah, you can do it not to exceed 30 years.
All right.
I just don't want to set a low, an early end.
Thank you very much. And finally, after reviewing the level of effort, PID application fee recommendations. After reviewing the level of effort involved with our existing PIDs compared to other cities and with what we might anticipate these deals being structured, staff is recommending the following application fee structure, something about $15,000 with maybe a portion due up front, $10,000 with the later portion being due at a later step, perhaps when City Council acknowledges the PID, just so we're not collecting that whole money up front and us deciding that the deal will not continue through.
But do you know if, since we haven't really done one, I mean, the two that we've done have been really simple. You couldn't have created MUDs anyway. So a PID was a mechanism whereby they could develop with some kind of a reimbursement in order to be competitive with the marketplace. They were residential PID. For what we're talking about now with like an Imperial or a Lake Point, those are substantially different, to Suzanne's point. You know, commercial, retail, you know, could be a hotel, could be residential, could be a whole lot of things. Is that $15,000, is that going to cover the cost of doing something like that? Is my question. You
Love
get the
that
consultants
question.
involved. Andrea, I guess that's a question.
I love that
kick
question.
that to you.
So what you'll find, Mr. Mayor and Council, is that if you have that application fee, you're going to get your developers that obviously are serious about moving forward with the project and negotiating a development agreement, and not so much of trying to conduct due diligence at the cost of city staff time. And so when you ask for that commitment, that financial commitment as an upfront fee, that ensures that your developers have done a large amount, if not all of their due diligence, and are ready to really move forward with the project and begin negotiating a development agreement.
Well, Andrea, I was thinking that was too low. You're thinking it's too. I mean, it takes you 50 grand to create a MUD, and
No, that's a good point. We used our MUD fee, which is about $38,000, and kind of worked backwards from that. We had those discussions internally. So if you feel like we need to go up on that, that's.
I just say up to and figure out what that up to amount is, and go up to what it would cost to create a MUD. And that way you've got, I mean, it's a reimbursement of cost. So the up to is only if it costs that much. But I'd say 15 to me looks awful light.
Great.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I wanted to make sure, Kareem, that it's understood that this application fee is in addition to negotiating. If you remember from the presentation that I did, I mentioned a professional services agreement with the developer.
Yes, ma'am.
And whereby they would put up a developer deposit that would go into an escrow account. Now that escrow account is separate and apart from this application fee, and that escrow account would be utilized to cover those creation expenses to which I believe you're referring, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so what does this actually cover then, Andrea?
So this is an application fee that would cover the staff's time that would be utilized to review their actual application request.
Okay.
The developer's escrow is something separate and apart from that, which is much larger, Mr. Mayor, or can be, depending on the size of the project and the amount of time that your consultants are probably going to expend. And that's all decided when we're negotiating that professional services agreement. But commonly, we'll see those set at around 20 or 25,000, with a stipulation in the professional services agreement that will state that if the balance falls below a certain amount, the developer is required to put in additional funds into that escrow account with the city, so that the city's never having to cover your consultant's cost as a result of the creation process.
That makes
Does that
sense. Yes, Stuart?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to pile on if I may be permitted to do so. I'm not sure I understand the staggered fee. I mean, I would believe that this is to cover the expenses of evaluating, right? It doesn't matter. The staff's going to have to expend the same amount of money, staff time, et cetera, whether or not it gets to CC or whatever. Why complicate it? Why not just 15,000 and that's it?
That's a great point.
That's strictly a policy decision.
Yeah.
You're talking about rather than a two-step
Just do
process.
15, yeah, and have it over
That's
with.
fine.
Yeah.
Great. I can do that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Kareem, do we even have a fee today to do a PID?
No, we would need to adopt.
So we're going from 0 to 15, or whatever we decide on.
We do have a fee. We have a fee for processing a petition of utility districts. It's what we use for the mud, and we use the last 2 PIDs. That is $36,243.25.
So it's 2x the amount. So our current fees, we're not at 0, we're at 36,000. Now we're going to 15.
You guys go look at it. We're not going to solve it here tonight, but come back with a recommendation.
Thank you. Right, and we'll bring it home. Next steps in early next year, we'll finalize policy drafting, go through legal review, and complete policy adoption.
We can't get it this year.
I'll do my best.
Sorry, Kareem.
That's all right.
Just kidding.
Appreciate y'all.
Just kidding. Lisa and her team last year, they had to go through the poultry thing. I don't want to send them back through that again.
Right. Any clarifying questions for us? If not, hearing nothing, we'll yield my time.
Okay. Thank you, Kareem. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
Mr. Mayor and Council.
Item number 10, City Council City Manager Reports. 10A, Councilmember Reports. Suzanne, let's start with you.
I'm going to yield my time. Thank you.
Jennifer. No report, Mayor. William. No report. Nishad.
Well, today, myself, William, Suzanne, Carol, we were at the Smiley Jamaat Khan Center for Share Your Holiday Food Drive, sponsored by Channel 13. 900 youth from the school districts, Fort Bend, and private schools performed out there. It was a great turnout. I don't know how much they collected, but as always, they do a great job filling the pantries in the time when it's really needed during the holidays. That's it.
Carol.
I attended the Jingle Tree Festive Finale, which is a fundraiser for the Houston Museum of Natural Science Sugar Land. And today, Nishad, William, Suzanne, and I had a hard hat tour of UH Sugar Land's new technology building, and also attended an Avalon HOA meeting.
All right, and just for me, we've got the Christmas tree lighting. Oh, I'm sorry, Stuart, I did leave.
Nothing.
I didn't write you down, Stuart. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's okay.
We've got the Christmas tree lighting this Friday. As a reminder to the community and also the council members, we've got the employee Christmas party tomorrow. And then in a week, we have the senior gala party, which is always a big deal. And it has been relocated to the Marriott. It has. Item number B, City Manager Report. Mike.
Mayor, you covered my report.
Oh.
Thank you.
Item number 11, closed executive session. 11A, closed executive session as authorized by 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with 551074. Personnel matters. We're going to go ahead and recess and reconvene in the council dining room. Thank y'all. Stuart, I just totally skipped.